You would do that to me. Hello. Are you going to take the lead on this one? Because, I normally take the lead, so
We're back.
Again.
As usual.
We have more to talk to you about. Aren't you excited?
I'm excited. So today we're going to cover the rapture. I think there's a good 3 to 4 different views. We have the most common. Everyone's going to get swept out of here prior to any tribulation, any troubled times.
Pre-tribulation rapture.
Pre-trib. Mm-hmm. And then you've got someone in the middle that thinks we're going to be swept out of here in the middle before the...
So the tribulation is 7 years. So
right.
3.5 years of peace, 3.5 years of war is what we've been taught.
Right, so people feel that the tribulation is the whole 7 years or times of trouble, when in all reality it's more like 3.5 years.
For the most part. I mean, there are going to be parts like the 3.5 years of peace, with the peace accords and things like that, before the Antichrist actually announces himself as said Antichrist person. But the tribulation, or the hard part, the super hard part that nobody wants to be a part of, is the second 3.5 years.
Yeah, and then we've got the third way, the way that the Bible speaks of as post-rapture, and that's what the Bible says. So we're gonna go through these 3 and show you how many people are actually deceived in this fairy tale, and how many people are actually not deceived. And there's one final way that people believe, there's probably several ways, but the one that you hear the most of, I think, is that we're actually in the 1,000 years right now currently, and Jesus is actually reigning as king. See,
I didn't hear that one until I moved here. So apparently that's a common thought in this area.
Okay. Well, let's do you want to start by reading Matthew 24, or do you want to start with...
In case you're wondering what he's looking at, I have notes here of things that we want to talk about. So in case you're wondering why he keeps leaning over and looking down at the table. I think that we should... I think we should read Matthew 24. There are a lot of verses that people use for the pre-tribulation rapture, which was always the most popular where I'm from and where I grew up at, which means that he's going to come and save all the believers before the tribulation comes on the earth, because we're supposed to be spared God's wrath. And so they take those verses and they formulate them to make the rapture. And that's how I was raised.
That's how I was raised in church, but not by my parents.
Well, I was raised that way because my dad was a minister in the church. So
I think we should actually start with rapture, pre-tribulation rapture, and let's work our way to the actual Bible. That makes the most sense. Most people will go to church today, Baptist, Methodist, name some. I don't know.
Episcopalian,
thousands of different people. Thousands of different denominations.
There's 300,000 denominations.
So many different. The Church of the Bible, the Church of God, the Church, whatever.
The Catholic.
Sure, 50,000 different Baptists. Anyway.
Southern Baptist, Missionary Baptist, Regular Baptist. All of them.
Pick your poison, if you will.
Essentially.
And we're not saying that everyone that believes in this way is going to hell.
No.
We're just simply saying that people that believe in this pre-trib rapture is deceived. And
it's not a salvation issue, but it can be.
Oh, that's the point. Satan wants to twist up your mind, so when you actually are in it, you don't recognize it, and you think, "Oh, why haven't I been raptured?
Out of it, it must
should have already been gone. If this guy's actually the Antichrist, shouldn't I already be gone?"
Yeah. So, I was raised pre-tribulation rapture, and I did a thorough read. We both have, actually, through the entire Bible. And I was kind of dumbfounded and taken aback. It was probably about 3 years ago. The word rapture is not in the Bible at all. And it was actually, I believe it was a girl in France, like a nun or something, that first used the term rapture, which I believe in Latin means a snatching away. So it's basically the same thing. It's just something like that. And I could be mistaken on where she was from. But anyway, the rapture was actually first introduced around like the 1700s. So it wasn't even in the original doctrine, not even in the original doctrine of the church or the Catholic Church. And it just grew and gained popularity through the 1700s, the 1800s, and even more so in the 1900s as the year 2000 approached, because a lot of people thought that the earth existed for, roughly 4,000 years before. And so 2000 would make it 6,000 years. So like, oh, in the year 2000, but they forgot it was the Roman calendar and not the Hebrew calendar. And we'll get to that in another video. But so they thought the year 2000 was going to be the year of the rapture, and a lot of people thought that 2012 was going to be the end of the world because that was the end of the Mayan and the Aztec calendar.
Yeah, the year 2000 was a big deal. We were all waiting
Y2K.
for the computers to quit working.
I remember we watched the New Year in China because they were ahead of us to see what was going to happen. Right. And like, I remember that as clear as day. And so it's really just gained popularity as it's gone through, because like, who wants to sit and think about having to go through suffering and pain and watching people die and the earthquakes and hail and plagues and famines and all kinds of things. God, and we have them because we're believers. So like, why would he persecute us if we're believers? So we'll get to that later in the video too. But first, you said you wanted to go through what each individual one was, right?
Yeah, the pre-trib. And we've got some notes on it here, agendas. That is before tribulation.
So the 7 years that are marked by God, I just held up 10 fingers, but I meant 2 on this hand and 5 on this. So 7 years. Of the tribulation is what we've been taught in the church, but it's really only like 3.5 for the actual bad stuff, I guess, where it's all kind of just dumped out.
There'll be some things happen in those first few years, and it should be some way to tell that it's coming. We should be able to see the signs if we're looking. Right. If we don't care, we don't care.
But in Luke, we were told to watch for the signs.
So should be watching.
Like, you're not going to know the exact day, and no one can know the exact day or the exact hour, but you can tell if it's coming.
We're going to get into Matthew 24 in a minute, and he puts it pretty plainly when it's actually going to be. He doesn't say we're going to know the hour, but we're going to know
the time.
We're going to know.
Okay, this is the time. Like, this is when he's going to be coming. But so it's before the tribulation.
It is.
And all of the believers are going to be taken. So just everybody who's here is going to rise up in the clouds. And then there are 2 variations. So there's one that you are taken in the clouds, and then you're with Jesus forever from then on, and you have nothing to worry about ever at all anymore.
You ever heard the saying, oh, Aunt May is now with Jesus and forever?
Yeah. And that ties in a lot to the things that people believe about death as well.
It does.
Because Jesus is very clear that there is a resurrection, and you can't be resurrected as a believer in God if you've already gone to heaven. So, what do you believe? Do you believe that when you die, you go straight to heaven? Or do you believe that what Jesus said, that those who die in him will be resurrected and then go to heaven? Like, there's 2 different views on that, and that comes out with this pre-tribulation pretty prominently, more than the other ones.
It does.
So there's 2. So there's like I said, the one where they believe that they'll be taken straight to heaven. And then there's the one where they believe that they will go to heaven for a little while, and then they'll return for the millennial kingdom, but they'll miss out on like Armageddon and all of that.
Missed out in a bad way.
Which neither one is really correct. And we'll again go over that when we read here in a little bit. They also pre-tribulation people, and even mid-tribulation believers.
Real similar.
They both use stories like Noah's Ark, because Noah was saved out of the
Yep,
entire
yep,
world dying. Lot, where he and his family, save his wife who looked back, were taken out of Sodom and Gomorrah before they were destroyed.
right.
They used Joseph, who had 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine. And he and his family were spared, and the rest of the kingdoms around the world,
Right.
excluding Egypt, were all destroyed. And then they used the Israelites, how they were saved when Egypt was destroyed.
That's where my mind went.
They used the Israelites' escape to show that we will not have to go through the tribulation, because they didn't have to go through the tribulation.
But
But
did
we're
they?
gonna
You
but
know?
we're gonna show them a different way to look at it here in a minute. But that's what they believe. And then the mid-tribbers believe that
Mid-tribbers, it's real similar. They think that they will get to the middle somewhere
so they'll
and
be able to see.
maybe
Um,
recognize the bad guy or the
mhm.
bad people or
I think they'll be around to see the
the beast,
Antichrist.
if you will.
Mm-hmm.
The government, the one world government. They think they'll be
Mm-hmm.
there for that, and they Jens wrote they will be spared, or they think they'll be spared
The wrath of
from the
God.
wrath of God.
And they believe that the tribulation is the wrath of God,
And this is where
and
I
it's
was.
not.
Well,
But
it's definitely not. That's this is where I was actually just talking to Jen before we've done this. That I had watched a guy the other day preach, and he was saying something similar to this, but he's correct, I believe, and he says God's not going to martyr His own people. I don't think that God's going to purposely kill His people or martyr them just to martyr them next to His throne in heaven. I don't think that's going to happen. What would be the point of that? Why would He martyr His own people? They wouldn't actually be martyrs.
as Jesus said, a kingdom divided against itself will fall.
That's correct.
I
That's
mean, not
correct.
verbatim, but that's what he said.
Yeah, and then the guy went into how to recognize whether or not you had the mark at that time, the mark of the beast or the seal of God,
Mm-hmm.
and it was plain the way that he explained it to me that the very first thing you're going to see on these people, I think, was the first or second seal. I don't remember whenever they poured out the vials in Revelation. We'll go over that too. The people that had the mark of the beast had the boils all over their body, and I don't think that those things are going to be something that believers will have to worry about as long as they're not part of that mark of the beast, as long as
Mm-hmm.
they
And we'll
actually
talk
have the
about the
seal of
mark
God.
and stuff too. But we're gonna
Yeah,
talk about all that on the second video.
yeah, yeah. We'll go into the details of that later.
Right now we're gonna just kind of stick to the rapture topic first, and then we are gonna do a second video just right after this one. So we'll be same attire and everything,
We'll
and we'll
probably
talk
change
about.
shirts. I'll probably put a hat on.
Anyway, but we'll talk about the things that are going to be coming later. And I also want to say, I told you it's not a salvation issue if you believe in a pre-tribulation rapture. It's not a salvation issue if you believe in a mid-tribulation rapture.
It's a salvation
But
issue
no,
if
hang
you
on.
believe something different than what Jesus literally states.
No, I mean,
I
where it can just go with my frame of mind here. Hang on. So it's not a salvation issue to you yet. But if you don't follow what he says, and if you don't know what he really says, and you're expecting to be raptured out, and then you're not, it can be a salvation issue for you, because then you will think either A, what you've believed your whole life is a lie, or B,
this is
you're
actually
going to
Messiah.
be angry about you're going to be angry about the fact that that you weren't saved out of it. And so you're going to be so angry that you're going to turn away from God. So, like, right now, it's not a salvation issue for you, but I do worry that when that time comes, that it will be. It's not now, but it will be, because you're going to be distraught when you're going to think God forsook you. You're going to be like, God, why did you forsake me? Why am I still here? You were supposed to rapture me out. Well, he never says he raptured you out. And we'll read that here in a couple minutes, Jesus' own words. But let's go ahead and keep going on describing the tribulation. If you haven't gotten it yet, we are both what would be termed as post-tribbers, though we don't even believe in the rapture because it's not mentioned in the Bible. We do believe there's going to be a snatching away, but we're not going to be raptured up to heaven. That's what the rapture is supposed to be for, going up to heaven. But the Bible never says that we're going to be able to enter heaven. The only people that are anywhere near heaven are the martyrs, and they are secluded to one little spot under the altar and constantly just shouting at God to avenge them of their death. And he says, not until the full number of you has been martyred. So he has like a number of people until he's like, okay, this is the straw that broke the camel's back. I'm done now. Let's go do this. So we don't believe in a rapture because we don't believe we're going to be taken straight to heaven. We do believe in a snatching away, and we do believe that we'll meet him in the clouds because the Bible is very specific that we'll meet him in the clouds. So post-tribulation rapture follows Christ's words in Matthew 24, which is what he's going to read in a moment. We still believe, like I said, in the snatching away, but that it is, and we still believe, by the way, the pre-tribulation rapture believers, how they get away with their belief system and teaching it is that they believe that the rapture and Christ's second return are two different events at two different points in time. And by the way, no, they are two different events, and they are technically two different points in time, but they are consecutive with each other. Like one happens minute 1, one happens minute 2, one happens minute 3, one happens minute 4. Like it's very timed out.
Yeah, but not 7 years later.
No, it's not 7 years later. So when he appears in the sky, calls all his believers, the dead first, then those who are still alive. And then he takes them in the clouds, or us, if we're still lucky enough to be alive.
I don't know about luck, but sure.
You mean what I know. And then he takes us over to Armageddon. So like we don't go to heaven, we meet him in the clouds, and he takes us to Armageddon where he can protect us with Jerusalem, which is his city, from Armageddon. But anyway, so I have a list here of just the way that the Bible lists things out. And so that's the snatching away, then Armageddon, then the millennial kingdom, then the battle for the end, which is what I've named it. It doesn't have a name in the Bible. It's just another battle after the millennial kingdom. Then judgment, that's the great white throne judgment, the Lord's day, or the day of the Lord, or the judgment day of the Lord, whatever you want to call it, that's what it is. And then the new heaven and new earth and hell. Because after judgment, you either go to the new heaven or you go in new earth or you go to hell. And by the way, the new heaven is going to be on the new earth. So we won't go to the new heaven. We will go to the new earth that we'll be able to see Christ in his glory
in paradise.
In paradise. So anyway, just clarifying that little fact there.
But
do you want me to go back to that?
No, you're fine. Okay. The main thing to think about is what will be the point of Jesus stating that there's going to be this group of people first and then this group of people second. Like he says that he's going to raise the dead in Christ first, which like Jen says could be this minute and the next minute, and then they gather everyone that's alive, the elect. What will be the point of saying that if there was other people that have already been snatched away 7 years ago?
Or that when you die, you go straight to heaven. Who would be dead in him that's still here?
Let that sink in.
When you die, you go straight to heaven. That's not biblically correct. That's just a way that Satan has twisted the words of the Bible.
And we talk about this often. There's so many people that believe this way.
And that's why we have to talk about this. Well, because it sucks. We're going to kind of slap you with some truth here, and we're not trying to offend you. We're trying to lovingly tell you. If you are offended, it's the word of God. It's not us. It's God that's offending you, because we're literally just going to tell you what's in here. And the red part is what Jesus himself said. So, a lot of questions before we read Matthew 24. So go ahead and get your Bible open because we're going to do that here in just a minute. We're actually going to flip around for a minute.
Yeah, so all the people
after
that
we read
are
it.
all these people that are like, well, hold on, what about this verse, and that verse?
We'll get to it.
Jen's got them wrote down here, the main ones that people like to argue against. And we're not saying these things aren't correct. I'm saying that you're misinterpreting them because you've heard this from Billy Joe Odom up on the podium last 60, 70, 100, since the 1600s. For all these years, people spitting out the false doctrine.
You have to look at the way that it was written and the context and the intent of it. So a question that I get asked very frequently, particularly by my hardcore pre-tribulation friends, because we're supposed to comfort each other with these words. And how can we be comforted knowing we're going to go through the tribulation? Well,
you've seen the Left Behind movies.
You're not supposed to be comforted that you're going to go through the tribulation. You're supposed to be comforted that God's going to be with you while you go through it. And so that's why the words are supposed to be comforting. It's not supposed to be comforting that you're going to be saved out of it. Because we're supposed to be tested. And we'll get to that in a minute. But so my friend asked, why is the church not mentioned in Revelation past the very first chapter?
Because they're already gone, Jen. They've been raptured out.
Well, that's their thought. You don't have to laugh at them. I mean,
I'm not laughing at them. I'm laughing at the idea that this is just silly. And for people to believe something opposite of what Jesus himself said perfectly, it sucks.
They find other things to justify. They find a verse said by Paul, or they find a verse said by James, or they find a verse here or a verse there, and they pull them all together to create this false doctrine when you can literally read what Jesus said himself.
He gives you a timeline, and we're going to read it, but think about this. Walk into your church. Read this for yourself. Think about it. Pray about it. Ask God to give you discernment on it. And then walk into any church that you maybe go to now, or maybe one next week that you may try to change and go to that one. Walk into any church and say anything that Matthew 24 actually states. Actually pull your Bible open and say, hey, Mr. Preacher, what does this mean? If this is a timeline, this shows that we're actually not going to get raptured. If you said that to anybody, they're going to say, well, we love you, but you're not. That's not how we teach it. I really don't want you to say that in front of anybody. They'll get real sideways with you, and they'll immediately say you're not here. Get out of here.
If they think they're going to be going through turmoil, they freak out. And I'm not going to say I sit here and I'm like, yay, I'm going to get my fingernails pulled off. Or like, I don't want to go through it.
By people with boils on their skin. That's going to be great. No, it's going to suck.
Scary. It's scary to think about. Jesus has not given us a spirit of fear, but sometimes I get very fearful thinking about, not just for me, but I mean, I don't want to die a torturous, terrible death, but also for my children. Like, I want to try to protect them as much as possible. You know, we just have to keep in mind that it's not the flesh. We have to deny our flesh, and we have to keep our spirits clean. We cannot.
You have to depend on God.
And we have to pray about it.
And you can't
realize,
shoot your way out of it. You can't fight your way out of it. You have to depend on God to help you in the situation if you ask for it. And if He helps you by letting you get shot in the face, then that's it. That's fine.
The next thing you see is going to be him anyway.
Matter of fact, you get to go straight underneath the altar and start begging for
and being like, "How long until you avenge me?" They
that's
shot me in the face because I refuse to give you up. And
that's right.
You
can't give in just because it sucks, just because it hurts.
And you can't. I forgot what I was going to say. You can't. It's okay. It's a human emotion to be scared. It's a human emotion to be afraid. It's a human emotion to let your thoughts run away with you. I think it's pretty normal. But you have to have some kind of self-control where you can put those thoughts away. You have to understand that there's only so much planning that you can do. There's only so much preparation you can do.
So many holes to hide in.
That's why it is so important to depend on God. Because when the time comes, maybe you forgot to grab something from your house. Maybe you don't have your weapon. Maybe whatever, but you have to keep your spirit clean. You cannot defile it by taking back your beliefs or saying that you don't believe in God, because if you deny him before man, he'll deny you before his Father. So it's so important. Another reason,
if you deny him before man,
then he'll deny you
you're making
before
a
his
mistake.
Father. Yeah. So 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 1 to 3. And I know I told you to go to Matthew, but I want you to go there. What does it say? What does it say? I have it pulled up here on my computer, which is next to Brad's. It says, "Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, and by gathering unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter from us, as that the day of Christ is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means. For that day," speaking of the Lord's day, speaking of when he comes, when he gives judgment, etc., "for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition." So what has to happen before the tribulation? What has to happen before Jesus comes back the second time? A falling away of the sound doctrine, a falling away of the church. So you want to know why the church is not in Revelation past the first chapter? It's not because they were snatched away. It's because there is not going to be a church like there is now. We will be underground. We will be hunted down. We will not be able to gather together.
I don't think that the church now is anything more than the people that'll be doing the hunting.
That's
the
true.
majority of your church today are going to be covered in boils, and they're going to think that this thing that just came out of nowhere is their savior. They're going to think that there's no way because I should have been raptured out.
Similarly to the coronavirus and the vaccine, they're not looking to Jesus, they're looking for a vaccine.
They're looking to science, which is another god.
You may not realize that, but it is false worship.
That's a fact.
So I want to draw your attention to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 11. So we just read, 1 to 3? Yeah. So let's go to verse 11. And you can read all of this all the way through. If you think I'm not taking it, or if you think I'm taking it out of context, you should read it anyway. I'm just skipping down a little bit. I promise it's not out of context, but I'll leave that for you to decide. It says, "And for this cause, God shall send them, the people that aren't following him, a strong delusion, that they should believe a lie." So God himself is going to be putting power into the delusion. They're falling away. They're following false doctrines, and he's going to give power to that and make that rise. He already has.
It's already happening.
And then one other thing.
So, and you'll use, Revelation. Before you get off of that, you'll use, who's watching this who does not agree, you will use these exact verses to pretend like we're the ones that have the delusion over our eyes. This is a great delusion. We are one family of the whole area we live in. We're the only family. We're the only one that we can find anywhere near us within
40 miles or
maybe
50
further
miles.
that even come close to actually believing what the Bible says, versus thousands and thousands and maybe millions in the surrounding states that believe stark the opposite what you believe. So think about
3,000 that go to the church just down the street from us.
So just think, give that some thought.
3,000 families.
Give that some thought. Think about it. The door and the window is real narrow for the actual believers.
Gate is narrow that
That's
leads
right.
to life.
The gate is wide open for the ones that are led to destruction. Think about that. Put that in your mind. We're this little tiny piece of something we're trying to show you, and then everyone else is in this huge window. You think all those denominations, the 5,000 Baptist churches that are right here where we live within just 50 miles, you think all those people that go to church every Sunday, you think those are the people that are going to make it through the narrow gate? I mean, just think about it. Give it some. This is so, to me, it's so
we're not coming off
illogical.
like we're getting in and you're not. We're
No,
coming off
no,
like,
we fight
please
every
come
day.
with us.
We fight every day
Please
to
come
make
with
sure
us.
that we can get squeezed through the crack. I just want to get
It's
into
so
the crack.
hard.
Can I get one arm in the hole? Just pull me through. I'm in there. Grab my arm, pull me through, God. That's where we're at. That's
And we're not saying, and some people are going to be like, well, that's stupid because if you have Jesus, then you're going to go to heaven.
that.
And it's not exact. That's not exactly
not
how it works.
Read Revelation. Read
Well,
the
hang
word.
on. We're fixing to. So
we'll flip to that.
Revelation 3:9. So chapter 3, verse 9 says, "Behold, so Jesus, God Himself, I will make them a synagogue of Satan, which say that they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee." So all these people, and you're like, well, that's talking to the Jews. Well, I did a video before this about how if you are a believer, you literally transfer to Judaism and believe in the Messiah, because the Messiah came from Judaism. So now that's not all of it. It's the original. It's not with the Star of David. It's not with, which is the Star of Remphan, another video. It's not with all the customs like the 9-armed menorah. It's not all of that. I'm talking about the 10 Commandments and the original,
the
Torah, the first 5 books especially, which are the instructions to get to life. The tree of life. Tree of life, another video, but the tree of life is literally the wisdom of God. It's a metaphor for the wisdom of God, the tree that gives you life. Jesus is the root of Jesse, the root of David, and the tree is the word that feeds us and gives us life and sustenance and living water and all that come from the tree of life. The tree of life is the word of God and His laws, His covenant. And we are not in the new covenant. That's another video as well that I already did, so you can check that out. But we're not in the new covenant yet. So He is literally has been molding the people that say that they follow Him into a synagogue of Satan. So if you do not follow His laws, you are part of a synagogue of Satan. If you put a Christmas tree up, you're part of the synagogue of Satan. That is a Tammuz tree that has been twisted into something else. If you follow Easter, that's worship of Ishtar, which is a pagan goddess. And if you follow Valentine's Day, that's for Cupid and Astarte or Athena, whatever you want to call her.
That means you're choosing man's traditions over God's
You are
commands.
Literally a part of the synagogue of Satan.
He told us what to celebrate. We try to celebrate Him. We don't do the best at it, but He told us what things to celebrate throughout the year. We've had a video on that for Him, not for the thankfulness of the people that came in and found America. We're not thanking them on Thanksgiving. We're
thanking God that we live in this country,
that we got blessed to be here in the first place. We could be in a whole another world raising our kids in the middle of a desert. I don't. It could be a lot worse. We're rich as far as that goes.
And we're not saying that we've never participated in those either, because we've
just opening our eyes to what the truth is and the reality.
We woke up, we turned back to God and what He said. We literally felt a call and a pull from God, and we sat down and we read. He had got a bad feeling from the church that I had been going to pretty much from the start, but he agreed to keep going there. He liked the music, the people were friendly.
I like the music.
So we continued to go to my church for a while.
It was a big, beautiful.
Oh man. And
it was like a
Christmas concerts too. Do you remember they had like that dance recital and the whole church had candles and was singing
millions
together.
of dollars dumped into this place. Millions of dollars.
So much. And I'm not saying they don't do good works, because they have done many good works, but they don't preach what the Bible says. They take it out of context. They do the fill in the blanks things.
We can find.
Well, except for the ones that apparently are really far away.
Yeah.
We found the one that he's talking about. We found, and we live in the South. This guy lives all the way up in, like,
Maryland
Washington. No, not Maryland. Complete opposite of the map. But
further away than we can get.
We can't obviously drive there, and we're not. I mean, we watch stuff on the internet, but we're not like big on let's watch the internet for our.
No, we would like. It was. Let's not get off track.
Okay,
let's continue. We can go down a rabbit hole and chew it up like a worm. That don't make no sense. Let's not get into a laughing fit, Jennifer. Slow down. No giggling.
Okay. So it's important because we're talking about again, why isn't the church in Revelation? They are in Revelation. Revelation is. It's not the way that the churches are now, because the churches now are molding into a synagogue of Satan. They have already been molded. They're following their customs. I told you in our other videos.
What was it, the 1600s, what she said in the very beginning? Think about when was America created? 1700s. Okay, give that some thought. This pre-trib's been around about that long.
Did you know that Christmas was outlawed, by the way, throwing it in there, was outlawed until the 1800s, like the mid to late 1800s. It was not even allowed to be celebrated here, and it's like 130 years later, and like look at what it's become. This is why they outlawed it, because it's taken over. But anyways, that's just
it's for the kids, honey. It's for the children. The children like it. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean that's unfortunately a lot of the feedback. We like we just want to have a lot of memories. You can have memories doing God's feasts and holy days too. They're good memories.
I got some good memories, man. That brisket's great come Passover.
Or watching your dad try and blow the shofar. That was really fun.
That was great.
That was funny. Anyway, okay, so an important thing when you're reading Revelation, if you want to talk about how they're not mentioned past the first chapter of Revelation, you have to understand the Revelation is not meant to be read the way that Western books are written. Okay, so Western books, you read them front to back, and your information you get is gathered throughout. This is written like a puzzle, and you have to fit it together like a jigsaw puzzle, and it's talking about the same time frame, just different events that are happening at different points in that time frame, and then you smoosh it all together and you fill in the pieces of your jigsaw puzzle. It's not meant to be read front to back. Well, that seems really hard. Well, nothing ever worthwhile is easy. Okay, I'm just gonna throw that out there. Well, if God wanted us to know, then he would just tell us. Look at John. No. Look at John chapter 10, verse 22. Or I'm sorry, just John chapter 10 up through verse 22, because in John chapter 10 is Hanukkah, the Feast of Dedication, and the Pharisees or the priests were coming after Jesus, and they were like, if you are the Messiah, just tell us. And he refused to tell them, because he was like, my deeds, if nothing else that I have done, my deeds, my works, my miracles should be enough to testify that I am him. And all throughout he says, he that has ears to hear, he that has eyes to see, he that has ears to hear. He's going to say it the way that he says it, and only those who are really searching, who really want to know, are going to understand. If you want it to be easy, you're never going to understand. If you really want to search for it, you'll find it. He'll give it to you. Pray about it. I'm just saying. Anyway, John chapter 10. You can read that. Side note.
Your other point about Revelation being God hasn't, you said people are like, well, that's just too hard, or that's too difficult. You have to take Daniel, and you have to take Isaiah, and you have to take the 12 books of the minor prophets, and they'll fill in the gaps for you. Jesus is stating the same things in Matthew that was said in those books, and so is John, literally verbatim saying some of the same words and lines and actual verses that was actually prophesied way back before Jesus ever got here.
Absolutely. And I'm going to read real quick in Revelation these few verses that I have marked, and then we're going to read Matthew 24. So I'm going to just real quick finish up with the church within Revelation. The church, the body of believers, okay? Not the church building, not gathering on Sundays, not dressing pretty and saying hey to your friends, reading a little bit of the Bible, filling in some blanks. And I'm not making fun of those people. I'm not. It annoys me now that I know the truth, because I used to be one of those people. And now that I know the truth, my eyes have been opened. I can't stay. It's making me red. My face is getting red. I'm getting upset. Okay.
I'll turn up the white on the video.
Please
no
don't.
one will know.
Stop that. Okay, so turn with me to Revelation. Just humor me for a minute. Turn with me to Revelation. You want to know where the church is in Revelation, right? You said it's not mentioned after chapter 1, right? So go to
Revelation 12.
Chapter 12. Revelation chapter 12. And verse... Okay. So chapter 12 is talking about the dragon, and Satan was hurled to the earth and cast completely out of heaven. And verse 11 says, and they being the believers, overcame him, the devil, by the blood of the Lamb. So they have the testimony of Christ. And by the word of their testimony, that's the word of God. And they loved not their lives unto death. So they loved Jesus and the word of God, the law, that they were willing to die for it. Go down to verse 17. And the dragon, the devil, was wroth with the woman, Israel, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed. That's not the Jews, that's the believers that actually follow, the followers of the way, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Christ. See the duality? You can't have Christ without the law, and you can't have the law without Christ. It doesn't work. The law points to Christ, and Christ saves you from the law. They go hand in hand. It's like a handshake. Okay? All right, now go to...
believer.
I couldn't believe it. Okay. All right. Chapter 13, verse 10. So chapter 13 is talking about the mark of the beast and whether you can buy, sell, and trade, etc., etc. All right. Let's actually do verse 9. If any man have an ear, let him hear. So if any of you are really wanting to know, if you're really listening, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. So that's false teachers, etc. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. That's the persecution that's going to come against the believers of God. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Remember in James chapter 1, verses 2 and 3. Take it as pure joy, my brothers, when you face trials and tribulations of many kinds, for the testing of your faith develops perseverance. You have to persevere when you're being persecuted. You have to keep right. You have to be patient. You have to wait on God, even if it costs you your life. Chapter 14 and verse 12. Here is the patience of the saints. Here they're still waiting. Here are they, those people, that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Chapter 16, verse 15. Now, this is a different way of saying it. It's more metaphorical. Chapter 16, verse 15. Behold, I come as a thief. Remember, if you're not looking for him in the correct way, if you're not doing what he says, he's going to be a thief.
How does Jesus see the people that are looking? Very next word.
Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. What are the garments of the Lord? Isn't it the sword of truth, the breast, or is it the breastplate of whatever? Yes. The helmet, the breastplate, the sword.
Armor of God.
It's the armor of God. If you don't have the armor of God, you're going to be walking around naked and you're going to be ashamed because you won't have forgiveness. So when he comes for judgment, if you don't have Jesus, if you're not following him the way he said to, your shame is going to be shown to everybody. That's a different way of saying it. It's the same principle. And then I want you to do, let's see here, we did that one, and skip on over to 22 in verse 14. Blessed are they that do his commandments,
That's physically.
that they may have the right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates of the city. I mean, I don't know how much more. You're only going to want to do his commandments if you know him. 1 John 2-3 says that.
Yeah, you could. Jen's made a valid point to several people we've spoke to. Satan believes in Jesus. The demons believe in Jesus.
They tremble when they hear him.
All you got to do is believe, guys. No,
no, they believe in him.
They believe. They know exactly who he is. They're like, holy crap, what are you here for? It's a little early, don't you think?
Yeah, they're like, it's not the time yet. Have you come to torture us before the due time?
In due time, young demon. In due time.
Like, they know who he is. So even if you know who he is, that's not enough. We saw in Revelation. Oh, and one more. So Revelation.
One more.
Sorry, Revelation 3:16. And many people say, well, that's just talking about one church. Okay, but there's 7 churches mentioned in Revelation.
Only 7.
Do you know which one that you are a part of? If you don't know which of the 7 churches you're a part of, like the descendants of those churches, because these were all at the time that this was prophesied, these were all in Asia, okay, and Asia Minor. So they're right around the Mediterranean Sea area and a little bit northern Africa and some of Asia. But anyway,
somewhere over there.
So Asia and northern Asia, Asia Minor, were the first 7 churches, okay? And so we are descendants of those churches. You have to read as if you're a part of each of these churches if you don't know which one you're a part of. And so I don't like when people say, well, that was just for that particular church. That doesn't apply to my church. Well, there are literally millions of churches, but there's only 7 mentioned here, which means there are 7 kinds of churches. So you have to read them to differentiate which kind of church that you're in. So go to Revelation 3 and verse 15-16. I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would that thou wert cold or hot. So then, because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. So, the rapture doesn't apply because the church is mentioned throughout Revelation. The remnant of the church, what is left of the church, those who, when the rapture doesn't happen, those who still stick to God, those who refuse to follow the world, those who don't let man
control what they're going to think
or scare them or humiliate them or
which brings up a point. When I was going to church at 10 to 16, our preacher liked to say, Jesus could come tonight. Are you ready?
Yeah.
You need to be saved right now. He's coming tonight to get us out of here. And that was a scare tactic looking back. And I'm just like, man.
And certain scare tactics in certain scenarios are good.
Well, sure. We're not trying to scare you now, but I would be scared if I were you, if you're following false doctrine.
Absolutely.
I would be terrified.
So now that we've read Thessalonians, we forgot to talk about Corinthians.
We don't have to go into Corinthians. We're going to read Matthew.
That's the twinkling of an eye. We don't disagree with twinkling of an eye. We do think we'll be changed in the twinkling of an eye. We don't disagree
with any of the Bible, by the way. Any of it. It's just you can't take it out of context and say, oh, this is the way that some man told you that it was.
And we're pointing out that those are things that John and Paul wrote versus what Jesus actually said.
Which both are correct.
Absolutely.
Both are definitely correct.
And when taken in their context.
That's right.
Brad's going to go ahead and read Matthew chapter 24, the entire chapter to you.
We'll break down some of it. We're running out of time because we keep talking about other things, Jennifer. Matthew 24, you should definitely read it for yourselves. We're going to read it right quick and we'll break down a few pieces of it so you can kind of understand what we're saying and what it says. Matthew 24. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And when shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? So he's not speaking of him coming across town. He's not speaking of him coming to hang out with them before the Last Supper.
Or to rapture them away. They're literally asking the end of the world.
Hey, when's the end of the world coming, bro?
And also, I want to say they were asking to show him the temple, because remember, the temple was the most beautiful, glorious building ever back then. And these are fishermen who only got to go previously to the temple 3 times a year. But now they're with Jesus, so they're kind of going in and out of the temple. But this is one of their trips into the actual courts of the temple, not just passing
the buildings
by it.
Around it. Yeah, they're close, and Jesus is with them. And Jesus answered, verse 4, and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many.
We've seen that happen.
So what does that mean to everyone? Think about what that says. For many shall come in my name, he's saying himself, so Jesus, and say, I am Christ. So not only are people going to come and say that Jesus is real, all of the churches today, and they're still going to be deceiving people. They're still going to say Jesus exists. They're still going to say you should believe in Jesus, but then they're going to say, hey, follow us into these man-made traditions, into these false teachings, into these things that do not exist in the Bible. But come, God loves you anyway. Just come as you are. Even if you're a completely terrible person, come do it and continue to live that way, but come to church with us. Make sure you bring that 10%, and God's going to bless you. That's exactly what he's speaking of. These are, and plus, it's also saying as a what's that word? A duality meaning. Jen likes to point out a dual meaning, sometimes a triple meaning, whatever. He's also speaking of people that are literally saying they are Christ. I am Christ is what they're saying.
Guy in Russia.
Yeah, like there's a few weirdos in the world.
Or the guy that when the comet was coming, he told them all to drink the Kool-Aid, and they all died.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Remember that when we were kids?
Yeah. That he was a crazy man. He was a crazy man. I forget.
So it's a double meaning. So he's not only, because when I was raised, I wasn't raised to read it that people are going to say, yes, Jesus is the Christ, and mislead people, that the church itself could be infiltrated. I was read to read it as the crazy people. They're like, here, drink the Kool-Aid. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I know to stay away from those people. I know that they're not Jesus.
That guy's definitely not
Jesus.
But
it's different when you read it from both perspectives, when you read the dual meaning, and when you know that there are going to be those people out there who do say that Jesus is the Messiah, but they mislead you anyway. And that's what I found with like the video we did on that pastor that I spoke to.
Yes.
I spoke to many pastors.
She's actually one around. We've spoke to a few together. She's spoken to several in and off the internet, in person. Yeah, there's some. Y'all should check those videos out as well. We spoke of that. Jen and I have had some. We've had some conversations with people that are like, yeah, we know exactly what you're talking about. Those are false, but we're going to go ahead and continue to do it because that's what our church likes.
Yeah, it brings more people to the church. It keeps our members. We don't want our numbers to go down.
Yeah. Take heed that no man deceive you. Wow. For many shall come in my name, saying that I am Christ, and shall deceive many.
Verse 6.
And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So that's
so we've seen
working
World War
up to
I,
it.
World War II.
Yeah.
We saw
and rumors
the
of wars all the
fall
time.
Rome.
These people are about to blow each other up. It's happening every day.
Was it Hellenistic age when the church went into the Greeks and the church went into like Egypt? What's that? The Crusades.
The Crusades, sure.
Yeah. Anyway, so he's saying all that's going to happen.
All that's going to happen. You're going to hear about it. It's still going to happen. It's been happening. Doesn't mean it's over yet. And he's still speaking of the time that's not quite over yet. So keep going in verse 7. Verse 7 is still, the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places.
Yeah. I want to point out, why would he say nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom? Because the nations are different than the kingdoms. Kingdoms are the land, the territory. Nations are the peoples. What do we see in the United States right now?
People against people.
People against people within the kingdom. The
Within the
United States, whether you want to call it that or not, the United States is a kingdom. And just like the United Kingdom is several mini kingdoms and one big kingdom, but it's several mini kingdoms, and within those there are diverse nations.
And then counties inside of those.
And
yeah,
so,
yeah,
but the nations are the people groups. So in the United States, we are very diverse as a kingdom. We are diverse in nations. We have Native Americans, we have Caucasians, we have African Americans, or I don't know if that's politically correct anymore, so I'm not trying to offend anyone. We have
a lot
Asian
of different
Americans,
races of people that are all considered Americans. We'll keep it like that.
But they're all considered Americans in the kingdom.
Yeah.
But they're different nations. That's why they call it nationality. What is your nationality? Because that is, in fact, the nation you belong to. Whether you want to admit it or not, you can call yourself a United States citizen because you are part of the kingdom, but your nationality is the nation that you belong to. What kind of people, what tribe of people do you belong to? And so that's why he's pointing out, he's saying not only are the kingdoms or the countries going to fight against each other, but the people within the countries are going to fight against each other. We see that a lot, unfortunately, in like Northern Africa, and China. Everywhere. Right now, Hong Kong is fighting back against the actual Chinese people because they were used to being under the rule of England, and now like they're not or something. And
yeah, it's a weird situation.
Anyway, so keep that in mind. Nation and kingdom are two different things. Nation is your type of people, nationality. Kingdom is where you live.
Well, we can go deeper into that another time, Jennifer.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to put
all these in verse 8, all of these are the beginning of sorrows.
Just the beginning.
Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations by people for my name's sake.
It doesn't say all kingdoms, it says all nations. So all types of people, not certain countries, but all types of people are going to hate you.
If you're a believer.
By the way, if you're a follower.
we don't necessarily we don't really have any friends.
We don't really. We have like one.
I wouldn't say that we're hated yet by people. Maybe some.
Ostracized.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, the churches don't want us around.
No, we've been welcomed not to come back to many a church, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's okay.
It is what it is. I have probably about 3 friends that I can talk to, and they all live in different places.
I don't really have that.
That I can talk to about this sort of stuff that believe the same thing.
Sure.
Now I do have a couple of friends that live here that I'm still talking to about this, but they don't agree.
So we speak try to.
But
anyway. Verse 10, and then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another.
So when the nations start to hate you and kill you, are you going to turn in the people you're with to save your own life? Like, what if you get captured? They're going to be like, hey, turn these people in, and they're going to offend you. That means maybe they'll rape you if you're a woman, or maybe even a man, or they'll hurt you, or they'll threaten your kids, or whatever. Are you going to betray other people?
This, by the way, is all prior to. So we're still in the beginning. We're still prior to everything that's going down, and this is stuff that's happening since. This is stuff that's been happening since Jesus left the last time. All of it.
It's been happening.
Many shall offend each other, betray each other, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many.
And we've seen
many people are deceived. We've made videos of this. Many people. And because iniquity shall abound.
What is iniquity? It is sin. So transgression of the law. Anything that goes against those 10 commandments are right back there that you see on my wall. Anything that goes against those would be iniquity.
And other laws.
So it's going, and the other laws as well, but these are really important, and these are what even the Gentiles are supposed to be following. But
iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. So that's stating that, and even now in today's world, in America, if you will, people have a hard time forgiving people. They have a hard time loving one another. They have a hard time doing anything kind for anybody. It's a real selfish place.
And this is a duality
it
also
is.
because
There's
it
more.
means the love between human beings,
Yeah.
but also the love between you and God. Because remember, if you're scared, you're being chased, you've seen people die, they're threatening you, your love for God's going to kind of grow cold. You're like, oh, is this really worth my life? Like, what am I doing? You know, you can't let it get like that. You have to force yourself through it. So,
And
anyway,
then
it's a dual meaning.
he hits us in 13 with something about the end or the very end. But he that shall endure to the end, the same shall be saved.
Why say that if you're going to be raptured out?
Why even mention it?
If you're going to be taken out of it, why talk about having
Yeah.
to endure it?
Are you going to say the end as in literally the rapture, the pre-trib rapture? That's the end for you. If you can endure till then, you're saved. Because I've heard that too. People are like, "Oh yeah, that's what he's talking about." Yeah, he means until you endure to that first rapture.
But it doesn't say until the rapture. It says until the end.
That's correct.
Just like when he says, "Until the not one jot or tittle shall be in no wise taken from the law until
Yeah, Matthew 9,
all
I think it is, or somewhere.
has been fulfilled." And
Yeah.
it didn't mean on the cross. He meant all, like new heaven, new
Everything.
earth.
Verse 14, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. So those are two things right there, or a bunch of things that are going to happen in between the last time he was here and the next time he's here. And a lot of stuff happens in that journey, that 2,000 plus years. There's false prophets. We got inequity abounding. We got uh, all of the world shall have a chance to hear the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
All these things happen.
It doesn't mean that they will hear it. Okay, that's where people are like, "Whoa, these tribes haven't heard it yet," and okay, well, but they've had a chance to, and they kill the missionaries that try to go over there.
Maybe
so, like, that's they tried, you know. But anyway,
let's keep going. Number 15, verse 15. I mean, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whosoever readeth, let him understand.
That was an add-in by Matthew.
And he was speaking of readeth
the word in Daniel.
The word in Daniel.
So you have to.
So that would be a good time to stop and just say, okay, let me jump back to Daniel, and we can do that. We can do that another day. We'll do a Daniel thing. Go back to Daniel and read it. Look at the was it the 70th week or the end his end game, if you will. Mm-hmm. 16. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Okay, that's speaking of the Jews, correct?
Well, it's actually speaking of, because remember the house split into Judea and Israel, so it was the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom, and so Judea is going to have to flee to the mountains because they are in the valley, which is where Armageddon's going to take place. Just FYI. So they're going to have to leave before Armageddon takes place, or they're going to be in the stadia or the bowl or the valley of the mountains that's going to fill up with blood. Yeah. So, like, if you don't want to die, you better leave out of the area.
So you see how that goes. People are like, well, they're just talking about the Jews.
No, they're just talking about the people. Again, the people in that area.
17. Let him which is on the housetop not come down and take anything out of his house. Still speaking of the people fleeing. Mm-hmm. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes.
What happened to Lot's wife when she turned back looking at Sodom and Gomorrah? She turned into a pillar of salt. I'm not saying that these people are going to turn into a pillar of salt. Maybe they'll get destroyed by a missile that's going to hit them in the face. I don't know. But it definitely tells you not to look back.
Don't even think about looking back. Don't go grab your gun. Just get out of there.
Okay, verse 19.
Verse 19. And woe unto them that are with child.
Keep going.
Oh, so we make sure we're on the same page. And to them that give suck in those days.
Okay, so this is talking about kids who aren't weaned off the breast yet and women who are pregnant.
Why would children be here?
If there was a rapture, remember, the innocents should be taken out. Were the innocents taken out of Sodom and Gomorrah? No. God destroyed the entire peoples. Does that mean that their soul is damned to hell? No. I do think it's an age of innocence. For me, I hope it's an age of innocence, because that's it never specifically says an age of innocence, but it does say with David, his
Jesus
son will
does
be in
speak
heaven.
of the little ones or the children in a couple
And
spots.
so
I would hope so.
I hope so. Just like I don't think any of the aborted babies are going to go to hell just because their parents
Good
aborted them.
Lord help us.
But at the same time, your kids unfortunately can bear the consequence in at sometimes for the sins of the parents.
Yeah,
Now it says,
yeah, they do.
I know it says that the son shall not bear the sin of the father and the father his son because they're different people, but I feel like that's like when they're old enough to make a choice. Like you're not responsible for
There
the
will
sins that
be
they do.
children fleeing to the mountains and also absolute infant babies that are sucking,
Yes.
giving
And
suck, I guess
pregnant
it says.
women, maybe even in labor, trying to run up the mountain in labor. Like
All the above.
that's what he's talking about. Has he said one time yet that he has come to save his people yet? Has he said that one time?
I'm getting you
Has
guys
he
out.
said
Don't worry, the
has
kids are
he
going to be
said these
fine.
are only the leftover people? These are only the Gentile, the unbelieving. No. He hasn't said that yet. Keep going. So we're in what,
20.
20?
But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on a Sabbath day.
So if the Sabbath didn't still have importance, why would he mention the Sabbath? If we're not still supposed to be keeping the Sabbath, why is the Sabbath mentioned?
Yeah, because you're going to have to be running on the Sabbath. That means you're going to be sinning. That means you got to
Because you're not
move.
supposed to work
You
on the
got to
Sabbath.
take
You're
off
not
running.
supposed to. I mean, it's not unlawful to do good on the Sabbath, but you're not supposed to be fighting on the Sabbath. And like, if you're trying to run away and people are chasing you and they're trying to kill you, it's it's unlawful to be around a dead body on the Lord's day. Like, you're not supposed to do that, which is why they didn't. Again, when Jesus died and they put him in a tomb, that's why they didn't dress him, because it's a Sabbath. You're not supposed to be around a dead body. It defiles you. So like it says, pray that your flight is not during the
Those are
Sabbath.
Jesus' people, by the way, right next to him. So if he were to say, hey, you don't worry about the Sabbath anymore, why would they care?
Yeah.
Why would they have cared about that? They'd be like,
Not
we're going to put some clothes on him right now. Why not?
Yeah.
Anyways, 21. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, for the elect, those days shall be shortened.
So while God is pushing consequences or judgment onto the earth, not wrath, judgment. While God is pushing judgment onto the earth and people are dying, the people who have been preaching, why would they come after the believers? Because we're the ones that have been preaching this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. So when it actually starts to happen and they start getting boils on their skin and they start having famines and earthquakes and they're going to blame us for it like we're some kind of witches, and they're going to be
Y'all
like,
did
oh,
this.
you cast a
Where's your
spell on
boils?
us, like we're going to hunt you down until you fix it. But we can't fix it. We just have to tell them what can fix it.
And you notice he didn't split us. He didn't split us there. He put the elect in the same boat as everybody. He put us in the same boat. We're in the same boat right there. No flesh shall be saved, but for the elect's sake, because you guys are the believers,
because you are following me,
those days will be shortened. They will be shortened because of you, because you believe.
So he's going to have flesh survive that is both of the believer and the non-believer. So there's going to be believers and non-believers that survive, but it's only because of the believers that anybody's going to survive.
23. This is one of my favorites. There, if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs, we've already established that, and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. So the believers themselves could be deceived just by seeing these crazy signs and wonders. Probably people getting brought back to life, to people getting their arm put back on just with a touch, or just it could be anything. Moving a mountain, I don't know.
And I want to point this out. It says false Christ and false prophets. Now in Revelation it says the false prophet and the Antichrist. But
Singular
you
and
have
plural.
to understand the Antichrist is a spirit. It's been in the world since before Jesus was even here. It's anything that goes against Christ or against God's promise, against God's plan, is the spirit of the Antichrist. There will be a leader of it, which is the person. The same goes for the false prophet. There will be one guy that stands out above the rest of them that's kind of like a leader for them, but there will be
Pushing the
many
other false
people.
prophets.
Yeah, that there will be many people that have like signs and wonders that they're going to do. So it's not going to be. It's kind of like Jesus did all the miracles until. Well, I mean, they did a couple of demon
everything
things, but
that Jesus has
Paul could
already done.
heal and Peter could heal just by the
Everything.
shadow.
Hold on. Everything that Jesus has done, Satan is going to try to replicate. He's going to try to use the exact same tactics.
So that way it
and
lines up
That's
scripturally.
exactly right. He's going to try to take the word, twist it up, do it into you in front of your face, and so you'll think that he is Messiah or a Messiah or whatever. Messiah. Yeah. You're going to think, oh, that guy's the dude. He's the guy. He's got to be. I'm watching it with my own eyes.
Almost perfectly.
Yeah, he's going to try to replicate everything, and that's going to be part of the deception. It could.
He's going to match up so closely to scripture that it's going to be hard for people, even people who study a lot of the word.
Yeah, they're going to
It'll be hard for us to distinguish. Oh man, did we get it right? Was Jesus really the false Messiah?
It will make you doubt.
Like,
for
yeah,
sure.
You have to
says
stay firm.
It literally says they shall deceive the very elect. They, as in the false prophets, and the antichrists, the people,
or
the many,
the leaders,
the leaders themselves,
and the false prophet.
Take it as the president, all the way down to the governors, and then all the way down to the mayors. It's the same idea. It's the same setup. They're going to start from the top, and the bigger ones obviously will have more clout, where the smaller ones will have the on the ground in front of you, kind of, hey, you better believe in this guy because he helped me do this, and he's going to do the signs and wonders right in front of you or whatever. Plus on TV or wherever else you can not see it, the internet, whatever. 25. Behold, I have told you before. I have mentioned this before, guys. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as the lightning cometh.
Pay attention to this part. Okay, go.
27. For as the lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even unto the west, so also the coming of Son of Man be, of the Son of Man. So that literally means.
So remember in Revelation, when Jesus comes after the tribulation, the sky is going to go black, the sun is going to go dark, the moon is going to go dark, the earth is going to shake where the mountains go flat, the islands go into the sea, into the waters. New mountain ranges are going to come up. The earth is going to shake so violently that the heavens are going to shake, and the stars are going to fall to earth because the heavens have been shaken so aggressively that the stars in their original habitation are going to fall to earth. And when everything is so dark, a darkness you can feel because it's so dark, you can feel it. Then,
in the middle of the day, by the way.
Then Jesus is going to come like lightning. It doesn't say he is lightning. It doesn't say he is the sun. It says he is like lightning, so bright, and he's going to flash from the east to the west, and all eyes shall see him and be fixated on him. Everybody from the east to the west.
That's not just east and west Jerusalem, by the way. That's
No.
not just...
just
Saudi Arabia. That's as far as it goes.
From
the east to the west, literally from the east to the west, all the way through the whole world. You're going to see it. Boom. It'll be seen by everybody. 28. For whosoever the carcass is, there will be the eagles be gathered together. Immediately after the tribulation, immediately after the tribulation of those days, shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven.
So he's going back and he's reiterating, he's expanding. So he's like, okay, like lightning comes out, because you're probably going to say, well, you're taking it out of context. You're reading it wrong. It goes like this. No, it's secular. secular? Is that
Circular.
anyway? Whatever. It's cyclical. That's what it is. Cyclical. Couldn't think of it. Okay, so it's a puzzle. He's speaking not in parable this time. He's actually being for real with these people because they've been with him for 3 years or more.
He's
So
hitting them with the real.
he's finally telling them, okay, you want to know? I've tested you enough. You're going to know. But so now he said, this is what's going to happen. But let me go reiterate. So like this exactly. Yes, I'm going to come like lightning. But this is going to happen. And then I'm going to come like lightning. So he's saying, remember wherever the carcass is, remember in Armageddon, that stadia, that valley of Armageddon, which is not the name of the war, but the name of the area of Judea next to the mountains. Okay, remember he's going to put his feet on the Mount of Olives. And so that valley right by the Mount of Olives is going to fill with blood. So he's saying the eagles, remember in Revelation, it says that an angel will call for the birds to come and eat on the carcasses of the kings, the great kings that are going to fall in the valley. So he's saying the carcasses are going to be there, the eagles are going to be gathered together, and they're going to eat there. And then he's like, he stops for, I would assume, just a second, and he's like, okay, let me reiterate, let me say this again. So immediately after the tribulation,
just immediately after the tribulation
of those days, the sun will be darkened.
There's
the
the
moon will
darkened
not
sun.
give her light.
There's the light going away.
That's why he's going to look like lightning, because it's going to be so dark that he's going to be so bright. It's going to look like lightning because the sun is darkened, because the moon isn't going to give her light, because the stars are going to fall from heaven, because the heavens are going to be shaken, and then will appear the Son of Man in heaven.
And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels at this point.
Not beforehand.
He shall send his angels now, after the darkness, after the lightning, after everything, after tribulation, with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect. So they're still here. We're still here. From the four winds, from one end of the heaven to the other. Now, he's saying in 32, learn the parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and put forth leaves, ye know the summer is nigh.
So he's saying the signs.
He's referring
of the
to the signs.
So he's like, okay, so you know when the twigs are tender and they've got the little buds on them and they're all cute and they're fixing to blossom, and you know that summer's coming because after the winter you've seen the little shoots start coming up. And we all know, obviously not many of us have fig trees here, but we all know the signs that summer is coming. We all know what the spring looks like, when the winter is going away and when our plants are starting to come up, little baby plants. We all know the signs.
So likewise, ye, when ye shall see these things, just like the fig tree parable, know that it is near, even at the doors, like it's close, it's time. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled.
He wasn't speaking of his disciples' generation.
Obviously
He's speaking
not.
of, well, they say that.
Jeez.
He was speaking of the people that see the signs. When they start seeing the signs that he's told them coming about, when you see people fleeing to the mountains in Judea, when you see people that let's see here, false prophets have arisen to
which they have
deceive many, when people are giving up and being and offending one another even until death, when you are being delivered up to be afflicted and are being killed. They are all over the world. It hasn't come to that point in America yet, but it's real close. When all of these things, false signs and wonders,
false prophets and people telling you that Christ is doing these things.
Vaccine for COVID within a year. I think that's kind of a medical miracle. I mean, it's not sitting there and going like, ooh, let me put your ear back on your face. But it's still a modern day miracle that they came up with a vaccine so quickly. But I mean, I think it's going to get to the point with like the ear healing and stuff. Yeah. Not quite there yet. That's just my personal opinion.
Everything that Jesus done will be replicated.
But when we see these things come to pass, fleeing to the mountains, people not going back for their food when they're saying, "Oh, Christ is coming," etc. That's when we know that it's about getting time. Like it's for
He's
real.
at the
It's
door.
happening.
That's what he says. He's at the door. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so 34. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass until these things be fulfilled. Till
So
these things
that
be fulfilled.
generation that sees the fig tree blossoming.
That's right. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away.
So even in the new heaven and new earth, his words still are not going to pass away. Those of you that say, "Oh, the law was nailed to the cross and we don't have to obey the law anymore." He
Come on, man.
literally said even though heaven and earth pass away, his words aren't going to pass away. His words, anything that is spoken out of his mouth, God's mouth, Jesus' mouth, they're two in one. It's the singularness of God. Anything that is spoken out of his mouth can't be undone. There can be an amendment, such as Christ's blood covering, where the sacrifices would have been made by lambs and animals and
Sure,
other things,
sure.
but it cannot be undone. So, like these laws can't be undone. They are God. God is the law. The law is God. They are two in one. John says, "In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God." So the Word is God. So he can't undo himself. Like if he undid the law, he would not exist anymore. So it's a
Yeah.
paradigm. You just can't. It's like a catch-22. The law is God. God is the law. You can't undo the law, because if you undo the law, you undo God, and if you undo God, then you can undo the law, but you can't undo God because God is never ending. So like, that means the law is never ending. And I talk about that in my New Covenant video, so you should watch that one if you haven't. But anyway, I
36.
digress.
But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. So is that saying that we shouldn't see the miracles or shouldn't see the signs? We shouldn't be looking for these things that he's speaking of? Why would he mention them if he's not? He's giving us a heads up, but we're not going to know the exact moment of that twinkle of that eye or
Right.
that thief of that night. We're not going to
Don't
know,
listen
right?
to people that tell you, "Oh,
It's
it's going to be
coming
on
this.
this
Yeah, we had that
day."
guy. I
Joe
don't
Tony.
know. Let's not mention any names. There's a guy on YouTube, Mister T. We'll call him. Kind of a kind of a funny guy. I like some of the stuff he says. He's just so twisted and so hard to learn something new because he's an older gentleman. And I've actually sent him a couple of notes just to see if I could get him to
I
talk.
think he has his intentions.
His intentions are good, but he does feel that if we don't believe in a pre-trib rapture, then we're all going to hell. Those are his words, not mine. But at the same time, it's vice versa. If you don't believe in a actual Bible spoken rapture
By
or
Jesus.
by Jesus, or not a rapture, but a snatching away,
And
then
there's
we're
a
not saying you're not
chance.
going to go to heaven. We're simply saying that you're going to be in the midst of a lot of deception that's
You're
going to
gonna freak
freak you
out,
out.
and you're gonna. That is why I said again, reiterating, it is not a salvation issue yet, but it could be
Definitely could be.
when you are quote unquote left behind. Let's say there's a false
Yeah.
rapture. They figure out China
Yeah.
launched that new sun or something.
Yeah.
The
Oh
thingy.
man.
Let's say that's a rapture device, and they just say it's a new sun, and it floats around the earth, and and um and it just goes up and starts picking people
Or
up off the
melting
earth or
people,
something,
just
and
making
you
them
think it's
disappear.
a rapture because so many people have gone missing. Then you're gonna think, oh,
We're not going down a rabbit
I'm
hole
just
that
saying.
China has launched a rapture machine. We're simply saying that something of that nature could put a huge delusion over the world. If my entire family got sucked out of here tomorrow or tonight while we're sleeping, and their clothes left behind with all folded nicely with my wife's ring laying there like on the movies, if that were to happen to me, I couldn't be shaken. I'm not saying it wouldn't be tough, but I'm simply saying that
You have
I
to
know
know.
that Jesus didn't say that this was going to happen, so I would know that that's false. And maybe they're dead. Maybe they got sucked into some slavery somewhere on another planet. I don't know. But point being,
But
you
I'm not allowed to
can't
talk
be
about it
shaken.
being a rapture machine.
You
But you talk
can't
about
be.
sucked
Well,
into
I'm just
slavery on a
saying, if
different
that were to
planet.
happen to me, like they show in these movies or these books, you'd have to keep your faith. You can't be shaken by it because it can't be real. That's not what Jesus
Close
said.
the door, please.
Jesus didn't say that, so that's not real. It's not happening. Didn't happen. I would have to I'd have to accept it as something else. These people just killed my family, and I'd have to continue on until it's my turn to be killed and or embrace to the end and survive. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep going. For as in the days of Noah,
No, but
37. But as of the days of Noah
Noah.
or Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark.
They did not listen to him. If you remember the story of Noah and the ark, you know that he tried to talk to them and they called him a crazy man, and he went into the ark.
And all those little children also drowned in the water, just like their
parents.
horrible parents.
The kids didn't come on the ark with Noah. Only Noah's kids came on the ark.
That's right. Think about that.
Only Noah's kids came on the ark.
Now, we're not saying those children are all in hell. We're simply saying that that's...
but that was the consequence of the choices their parents made because they weren't of the age to make a decision.
That's exactly right. Let's keep going. 39. And knew not until the flood came. The people literally didn't know until the flood came. They didn't believe.
Close the door. Thank you.
We've got children.
Sorry, go ahead.
So the people were marrying, they were eating and drinking, and they did this until literally the doors closed and it started raining.
Remember, Noah went into the ark and he was there for 7 days with his family before it started raining. So they probably watched him go into the ark and they're like, oh, this guy's
and
crazy.
He's like, last call, last call.
And like day 3, they're probably like, this guy's psycho. I knew it wasn't going to rain. And then like day 7, it starts sprinkling. Like, what is this? What's happening?
Yeah, and then the heavens literally open up.
And the earth opened. And you have to remember, like, it's not just a rain. It didn't just rain for 40 days and 40 nights. No, bro. It rained out of the clouds. The waters of the deep burst forth. Imagine geysers popping up everywhere, like Old Faithful, and just like popping up everywhere, all over the earth. And then literally the heavens cracking open and the water. Remember, there's a dome that separates waters from water, right? With air in the middle. So it literally cracked open and water fell from the heavens. From the dome. It fell from the heavens. So they've got regular rain clouds, then they've got water from the dome, and then they've got geysers popping up, bursting forth from underneath. So, like...
people started panicking.
I mean...
let me get on that boat!
You know, there's a really good kid show called Superbook. You should watch the Noah's Ark Superbook. Just FYI.
Good idea.
Anyway.
Send them down the path of children's books.
It's not a book. It's a TV show, and it shows an actual... pretty decent Noah's Ark, I must say.
Let's keep going. We're getting off track.
Sorry.
Then shall 2 be left. Wait. 39, and the flood came and took them all away, including the children. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. 40. Then shall 2 be in the field, and 1 shall be taken, and the other left.
Okay,
snatching away.
Side by side.
2 women shall be grinding at the mill, and 1 shall be taken, and the other left.
Okay, so they're working
snatching
together.
away. This is by the way, this is after the tribulation.
Mm-hmm.
So people are still going to be trying to get some food and eat, apparently, and people are still going to be, out in the field working.
What they do.
Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. So we should be watching. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up.
So he's saying, basically, if you are watching, if you are following me, if you are trying to do what's right, then your house... If you would have known when God's coming, you would have done your best to follow God and to be sure that everyone in your house followed God. If you knew He was coming tomorrow,
I think that is a preparation verse, not a build a mansion under the earth and refer to it when it's time. I'm simply saying that's
preparation in this.
Be prepared in your heart. Be prepared. Like it's literally telling you, hey, if you'd have known the hour, you'd be up watching and you'd have been sitting there waiting. You'd have been like, hey, it's coming tonight. So you got to be prepared at all times, especially as far as your salvation
And
goes.
his house, your house is not like your actual physical house. Your house is your family, your children. So, like, not only are you responsible for you to know the word, but men, you're responsible for your woman to know the word. You're responsible for your children to know the word. You are the priest of your individual house. You are the head of your house. You are the one that is supposed to show them right from wrong, not the
And got to
pastor
do it in
guy
the
at
best.
church. Now, is it unlawful to have a pastor? No. Is it
No.
unlawful to have a guy that leads you because you are human as well and at fault? No. You're supposed to have someone as long as you remember that they are not better than you and they are just a human too, and that you are to have each other accountable. You can have a leader of a service. But men, your job is to be sure that your woman is reading the word, that your woman believes the word, that your woman is raising your children in the word, that your woman is doing what she is supposed to do. You are in charge. Don't be pansy. I mean, you don't have to be mean either, but like, don't let her run your house. Don't let her run everything.
She does what she's told.
I mean, sometimes.
Let's keep going. In other words, take care of your own, men.
Be the leader.
Therefore, 44. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not the Son of Man cometh. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant, whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But, and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, My Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken. In other words, who cares? The Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
It's interesting that he puts the hypocrites in a separate area, and he's talking about two servants. So two people that claim to be his followers.
Sure.
So one is claiming to be his. So there are going to be people that you go to church with that you think are just on fire for God that aren't going to make it.
And there'll be others
And they
that
will
you think
wonder
are horrible
why.
people that are going to be right next to you if you make it and going up in the same
And they'll
twinkle.
wonder why they haven't made it. They'll shout out, Lord, Lord. And
Yeah,
he'll say,
I
Depart from
have
me, I know
literally
you
casted
not,
out demons in
you
your
worker of
name.
iniquity.
And he's going to be like, no, man, you're lukewarm. You're just, you're right on the edge. Sorry, you didn't make it. Now I'm going to spit you out just like an unbeliever. Now I'm going to kick you to the curb and you're going to burn in hell. And that's,
there are so many people that I contemplate, and again, we're not calling ourselves more righteous than anyone.
No.
We're not calling ourselves more deserving than anyone. If anything, we don't feel like we're deserving. But we know he's faithful. And
we're trying to squeeze through that door just like
so
everyone
sorrowful.
else.
We are so sorrowful for the people that we hope that haven't been lost, but that we know in our heart have been.
Yeah, the ones that have already passed.
That have already passed.
Yeah, because they don't get to come back out of the earth and be judged until after the 1,000 years, and
that's just on Judgment Day.
That's a long journey to be, asleep in the earth,
having
knowing
nightmares.
that you're damned to hell and having horrible nightmares. Yeah, I feel bad. I've got family members, and I know Jen does too, as people that she's known, friends that people that were someone special to us on earth, and we know that their heart wasn't correct, and
we know that they weren't right with God. We know because of maybe where we were even. Thank God that he kept me here so I could correct myself.
There's
because
a reason
remember,
for that.
God is faithful and just, that when you come back to him, if you choose, it's your choice. So if you come back to him, he's faithful to turn back to you. And
Oh, there's been many
to
times
bless you
that,
going forward
maybe
from that
both of us
day.
should have been dead that night. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure you've all got that story.
Mhm.
When I was younger, this right here happened. It should have been bad. And
Mhm.
you made it through it. Maybe you actually, had a terrible, terrible situation where you got hurt, but you made it through it. There's a reason that you make it through it. And there's a reason that you come back, and there's a reason you make a choice.
Mhm.
Maybe it's to make these videos and act goofy on here and try to spread exactly what we think is the truth. And maybe it's
It's not
not.
what we think
Maybe
is the
this is.
truth. It's what is the truth. And
Well,
we just
we
literally
know it's
read
the
the
truth,
words
but
of
we're
Jesus.
trying to tell you that
We don't think it's the truth.
it
It's
was a
literally what Jesus
it's a
said.
breakdown. Jesus was clear. There's no way to get around it. You can flip through any part of this Bible and you can try to say, well, this is Jesus was wrong, or
Or
Jesus
that's
was
not what he
didn't he didn't
meant.
mean that. This is a straight out of his mouth, and it's good that Matthew was the guy that wrote it down. He was pretty clear and he was
He was very
pretty
concise with
legible
his
on his.
note
He
taking.
was
Like he documented, from Adam all the way to Jesus, every single person and relation that Jesus had. Like he's the one that kept the genealogical
He gave us the
tract
real.
and
He gave us the real, and it's right here. Go read it for yourselves. If we didn't break it down good enough for you, read it 3 times, read it 5 times, read the whole book of
send
Matthew.
us a
Matthew's a great
comment.
book. Please comment on this. Tell us we're wrong and tell us why, because then we'll just open this exact verse that we just read to you. It's clear. This all happens after the tribulation, and then we get to go meet him in the clouds, and then we go battle in Armageddon. Maybe it's a quick sword of his mouth word. Maybe it's a 30-minute battle. Maybe it's 5 seconds. We don't know. But
Maybe it lasts for days.
your goal, your ultimate goal as a believer, is to join Jesus in that battle and join him in the clouds and go straight
And
there.
you might not even have to battle. But
Probably not,
the point
but
is
you're
that
on this
you
side.
want to get raised into the clouds.
I'm going.
You're just not going to heaven. He's going to raise you into the
Yeah,
clouds
yeah.
on his way over to Armageddon. Could he teleport straight from wherever he was down there? Sure, but that's not what he says he's going to do.
He's going to be seen like
He's
a
going to be
lightning
seen.
bolt from like a lightning bolt from east to the west.
And remember, the
Boom.
kings of the earth at that point that have gathered in Armageddon, most of them know this biblical story because they're kings, so they're really well learned, and in traditions around the world because they have to meet different presidents and different kings and queens and things of that nature. So
Yeah.
they kind of know some of the traditions
Oh,
going
well,
into it.
most
So
cheerleaders are
that's why
led
it
by
says,
Satan, so keep
and
that in
that's
mind.
why it says though that when they see him, all the nations of the earth will mourn. And in Revelation, it says they will run to the caves and
Yeah.
into the valleys to escape the wrath, and they will cry for the rocks to fall on them and kill them, so they don't have to be like torn apart by the word of God. So
Yeah.
it's going to be kind of a gruesome battle, but like think of that blood in the valley as high as a horse's bridle from all the people that are going to be killed in that valley. As high as the horse's bridle.
What is it, 200 million man army?
200 million men.
Yeah, that's more than just the armies of the world today. So think about that.
Yeah, it's a couple of them joined together.
It's got to be
And
more than a couple.
We'll go into that on our Revelation and Isaiah, Jeremiah, Daniel, Ezekiel, our end times video. And we may not actually do that because this video is almost 2 hours long already.
Yeah.
So we may not do that other one today. It might be a couple days, but we are going to do it. Hopefully we won't spend as much time. But I hope that this has been a blessing to you. I hope that maybe you've learned something. Maybe you learned a new viewpoint. Maybe, hopefully, you've gotten the truth out of it, and that you come out of her. Revelation says to come out of her, come out of the synagogue of Satan, come out of the woman, the seductress, the prostitute, the harlot of Babylon.
Yeah, and this is not
we're
not damning anybody. We're not trying to say that you're all going to hell if you go to church.
That's not for us to decide.
No,
we're just warning you to read the word for what the word says, and not
we
take somebody's
won't be a part.
view on it.
By the way, we're not going to be a part of that synagogue for Satan. We're not going to walk into the local church and join them. We're not going to join them. We will walk into a church and try to get some explanations on why they wouldn't teach what Jesus said to teach and get
Usually
them to
they don't even give us
change.
the time of day. Try and set up
No,
an
man, they
appointment. They
don't.
won't let
They
us say
don't.
the pastor is too busy, or you can make an appointment for 4 months out. Or even if we are lucky enough to speak to the pastor, like I did, and you are able to
Yeah.
get an appointment, they because they have been taught a certain way that has been since 300 AD ish.
Yeah, yeah.
Like they don't want to see what the word says.
We get it. We understand exactly where you're
Indoctrinated.
coming from because you were built this way from a young
You're
person, and
indoctrinated.
you're literally brainwashed, and it's hard to change. We know
It's
that.
hard to come out of it. I know
We get
that.
it. We understand. Jen especially understands waking up on that Sunday morning service and getting down to the local preacher's house and dressing nice and getting everything set up and
We were
let's.
the preacher's family. We had to look nice every Sunday.
That's
We
right.
had to
Looking nice.
have to
That's
have my
important.
hair, have to have my hair brushed, have to have my little dress on, my little frilly socks, my little
And that's
tap dancey looky shoes.
people look at you crazy sometimes, and that's actually came. They've gotten away from some of that nowadays in these big super churches, but they like to
Now
say
you dress in shaggy
just
clothes to
come
be
as you want.
stylish.
Yeah, you gotta be in style while you're here. Wear those holy jeans, no big deal. Where my preacher when I was a kid would have been like, this young man's got holy jeans on. What is going
we
on?
need to we need to get him some new pants.
Let's buy him some pants. Yeah, tuck your shirt in, young man.
It's either wear suits or look homeless. That's So.
All right, we got to get off here. It's been fun.
Bye guys. Be blessed.